Toca 2 Touring Cars is the sequel to the iconic Toca Touring Car Championship that was developed and published by Codemasters for both PlayStation and Microsoft Windows in 1998, and again would focus on the 1998 season of the British Touring Car Championship that would add in all of the licensed vehicles and teams that were reflective of the championship during that time. And this game would be a massive overhaul in terms of the visual aesthetics and graphics department, even with regards to the controls and various modes that are on offer. This game just offers so much in terms of playability and functionality, with even more realistic car models and even handling attributes that for its time was also considered among some of the best looking racing games, but it also had some of the best handling dynamics of any racing game out there. But also adding in a multitude of different modes with an arcade mode and even support race and other championships where you could race as Formula Fords and even Ford Fiestas in a custom championship. Again, each championship and mode that you would play as would unlock more features, tracks and even more cars to use in the game later on. And this is considered by many to possibly be the best game overall in the series, even compared to the likes of Toca World Touring Cars, which again offered up even more attributes and features. But just Toca 2, in my own personal opinion, has a more balanced feel to it that just really is suitable to what the game is trying to go for. Again, it goes for more of a realistic approach, but the handling and the car damage physics are a step up from that of the original game, as the first game was a fantastic game in its own right, and it's one of the best selling racing games ever seen, and also one of the greatest racing games ever on the PlayStation 1. But the second game, Toca 2, was really just a step up in terms of visuals and handling characteristics, as the first game, although was really good, the handling of the cars were very twitchy and you had to be very specific in how you raced, because it was one of the first simulation focused races seen on the PlayStation during that time in 1997, and you were rewarded for persistent racing, but if you were overly aggressive you would be crucified, because you would spin the car out or potentially even crash and get penalised with penalties depending on the way that you raced. But with Toca 2, the handling is definitely more approachable, it's more balanced and it's more beginner friendly. It's not as twitchy as it was before. Like, you can take a corner at a far greater sense of speed without feeling that the car is really going to twitch out on you or just spin out, especially when you're racing as the actual race cars like the touring cars themselves. They definitely have better handling characteristics. If when you're driving into smaller cars or even the likes of the Formula Fords, those cars are slightly different, as they do have more of a twitchy kind of aesthetic to them, and you will probably spin the cars out a lot more in that sense. But where the game really comes into its own is when you're driving as the actual touring cars themselves. And the game is often compared to Gran Turismo in terms of various features like the handling characteristics and so forth, but it also had great use of a dynamic damage model which wasn't seen in Gran Turismo and was really reflective of how you played the game. So you could literally smash the windscreen, you could damage parts of the body of the car, which could again reflect the handling, and it just was an all-round really good experience. And you had cars from a multitude of licensed manufacturers, from Audi, Ford, Honda, Nissan, Peugeot, Renault, Vauxhall, Volvo, and a multitude of other different types of sports cars, even from the likes of TVR, Lister Storm, Jaguar, among others. And it's considered honestly by many, and even in my own opinion, to be one of the greatest racing games of all time on the PlayStation. And if anything, it's often underrated, because there's so many games out there that sometimes Toca 2 falls under the radar in terms of certain qualities, because the game is often overlooked compared to the likes of Gran Turismo, Colin McRae and more of the heavy hitters in the series. But that doesn't take away from the play style and dynamics of Toca 2. In my own honest opinion, from having played the game, and my first experience with it, like many games I've played on the PlayStation, was on a demo disc that I got closer to around the Christmas time of 1998, and I remember being blown away by how visually impressive the game looked. And having come off the back of playing demos and even playing the full game of the first Toca Touring Car Championship, which I absolutely loved, I have done a previous video on that game, so I'll make sure to drop a link to that in the description. And I was just completely blown away by how good not only the game looked, but how it played in general. It was a massive improvement, and it doesn't take away from the original game. It's phenomenal in its own right, but this game was really a step up in terms of how it handled, how it looked. It had a great visual appeal to the game, because it had a great use of dynamic weather effects, from rain, particle effects, even down to the likes of the different day and night night kind of modes. But where the game really shone was the brightness of the graphics. It had a very vibrant and colourful palette to the overall visual style of the game, which really stood out and really suited the whole aesthetic that the game was going for. So it genuinely is a very solid and worthwhile experience, and for many like myself, it is definitely one of the best racing games on the PlayStation that you can play, hands down. I would definitely consider it to be in among the top 10 racing games of all time on the PlayStation, and it's also one of the best sequels to an original iconic game that's out there. While it may have been bettered by Toca World Touring Cars in terms of the mass appeal of the game, but I still think that Toca 2 is a more solid and down-to-earth experience and a more balanced experience for racing games. And if you are looking for a game that provides all of those unique elements, that is easy to pick up and play, and you will have a lot of fun with it, and that's even more easier to get into compared to both the first and the third game, Toca 2 is probably your best bet to play any of the games in the series, in my opinion. I think it's genuinely the best, and it's my personal favourite of the 3 games. And the same can be said even for the reviews, as it did get really decent reviews across the board. It just genuinely is a solid experience all around. A lot of fun, great use of cars, great tracks, great handling dynamics, weather effects, damage physics. The game really does have it all in abundance. So if you're looking for a very fun racing game to pick up and play, and want something that has a good balance between arcade aesthetics but also simulation, because this game really can do the two and do it well, then Toca 2 is definitely one to try out for sure. If you haven't played it already, or if you have played it, I highly recommend you go back and play it, because it is one of those all-time greats in my opinion that needs more attention, in fairness. And I would love to know your thoughts on Toca 2 Touring Cars for the PlayStation, and what are your thoughts of this iconic game, and even the whole series in general, and even which are your favourites. Do you prefer this one, prefer the first game, or even the third game in the series? I'd love to hear whatever stories you do have of the games in this series, so be sure to share them down in the comments below. And if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to be updated of future videos. And if you would like to see more content on the channel around other types of racing games similar to Toca 2, you can check out this playlist here on the screen to see more of those games in action. And as always, keep those gaming memories alive.